So when I was at the Forest Refuge, Khaydroup came and gave a presentation, a Dharma presentation, which I missed, and then I was very pleased to see the YouTube, and when I watched that, I was pretty much taken with her presence, and I definitely wanted to just invite her back so that I would have the opportunity to meet her too. And by the way, I have given you a new name, by the way. I've just, rather than Khaydroup, I've named you Dewdrop. It's easier to remember. It's more English, isn't it? Dewdrop. That's not better than Khaydroup. Dewdrop, right? It's got the dew in it. So, and as I was listening to her, and I really did so much. I felt as if I had known you before, and I thought in some ways I thought, like if you did 180 degrees, in some ways we're really quite the opposite. Who's laughing? Who was it? Everything. And so I gave a Dharma talk about 10 years ago on Krishnamurti. And Krishnamurti, is, as most of you know, is one of my favorite teachers. And so I started that talk 10 years ago, and this will give you a little idea of where I'm going. I started that talk by saying that I've always had this rule that you can't trust a teacher unless they've been dead for at least 100 years. That's my rule. And so I made an exception with Krishnamurti because I thought he was so wonderful. So he had only been dead about 5 years. I read him before he was passed on to whatever. But I thought I'm making an exception with him. But I mean, it's pretty easy with the Buddha, right? That's 2,600 years, of Jesus, that's 2,000 years. But I'm not making a joke, and really, I think in some ways that and maybe sadly, I'm not making a joke, but that would pretty much describe my attitude, sort of like, don't trust them until they're dead, and maybe you can come fairly close to them, but be careful so you don't want to get your wings burned, and that's appropriate for someone whose last name is Byrd. But. So I've thought about that over the years, and there's a great strength in that, and then the weakness, of course, is there's obviously a great downside to that too, and so it certainly has slowed down my process of embracing the Dharma, and I've gotten a little bit better at it. So I've noticed in the past, like in our intermediate course, we've talked a lot about this business of trusting in the teaching, trusting in the teacher. And I think that I'm not that atypical as a Westerner. I think the truth is we've been burned a lot by a lot of people who proclaim, their purity or their enlightenment, and we've discovered that there's a lot of people who have harmed lots and lots of devotees. So anyway, it was really clear that Dewdrop over here has in a sense, I think anyone coming from the Tibetan tradition, it's really pretty much you start out with the connection between you and the teacher, the heart-to-heart connection. And so in some ways, if you are looking for, if you want to start in the Tibetan tradition, which I know very little of, but I do think that you look for the teacher. I mean, you sort of like, you look for that connection with the teacher. And so John at our class yesterday, remember, John said, well, what is Theravada? What is the difference in Hinayana and Mahayana? And I said, oh, Lord, we can't get started on that yesterday. But it was, as we were talking at lunch, I was saying, really in the tradition that we come from here, it's the scripture. It's the teachings of the Buddha more than the teacher, right? That's more the connection. And so I'm really fascinated with this tradition, which is I know very little about. And then I'll say one more thing. Up until the 20th century, we knew nothing about Tibetan Buddhism. Nothing. I mean, like, I think maybe the first 1920, 1930, people started going into Tibet, right? But we knew very little about it. There was no relationship between Tibetan Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, none. There was no relation between Theravadan Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. I mean, so we're living in an age where suddenly there's a connection between yoga and Buddhism, and then the traditions of Buddhism as they come west, they're beginning to merge. Or maybe not merge, they're beginning to interact. It's a better word. So in a way, so this is what we're doing today. It's like we're having the opportunity to have a little bit of a interaction between two traditions, which I think is wonderful. I'm very happy to that we can do that. So the other thing is we're going to sort of like dialogue, but the other thing is feel free to jump in and ask a question, and right. And since we're videoing this, I will repeat the question so that it can be heard. And how are we doing? Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
So when we had lunch, and she found us a place midway between Pasadena and Long Beach, which was just fabulous. I think it was just almost exactly halfway, right?
I tried.
It was very good. I was impressed. And we had soup. I'm not going to say what kind of soup it was. We had soup, right? So we started talking about the whole idea of trust, and I'm just fascinated with this, the ability to go off and sit for almost 6 years, trusting. I mean, you've got to have a lot of trust to do that. I remember when, under his breath, David said, "I'd rather suffer." So I thought maybe we would begin with that and just talk about what trust means to us in terms of a teacher and
Is this
and
on?
welcome.
Yes, thank you. I don't mind if you call me Dewdrop.
I like Dewdrop.
It has a certain charm. It makes me feel a little bit like a fairy. Like wings, maybe bird and wings aren't, fairy wings aren't too different after all. As you were speaking, it took me back actually to before I got into a relationship with a teacher. And I remember distinctly thinking, I'll never have a teacher. I'll never find a teacher, because my teacher will be the one who tells me it's all up to you. And that's exactly what happened. I went to this Buddhist Christian conference in Boulder with a lot of Trungpa Rinpoche had met with Thomas Merton in India, a Catholic priest who actually was a really deep thinker and had come to certain ideas on his own through his own practice and prayers, and he started to seek out Buddhist teachers. And he was talking to Trungpa Rinpoche in India. He died actually quite soon after this. He was electrocuted, but Trungpa Rinpoche said they thought exactly alike. And he said, why don't you tell somebody? And he said, well, I can't because I'd be excommunicated. But it was out of that conversation that Trungpa Rinpoche wanted to have what he called the Buddhist Christian Conference. So they invited the Benedictines and monks and some nuns from the Carmelite tradition, and they had this wonderful 2 weeks or so of, and they had a Roshi there and different people from different contemplative traditions. And I attended that before I ever sat, before I ever got Dharma teachings. And Trungpa Rinpoche, there was a panel one evening in an Episcopal church, and he came in and he bowed to the cross and he bowed to all the people, and then he turned around, and I really felt like he pointed to me and he said, "It's all up to you." It's all up to you. And I felt like I was nailed.
Right.
Absolutely
You were.
nailed. And yeah, I had been really, I thought, I didn't think I would hear that from a teacher. So actually, as a gift, somebody gave me a weekend of sitting. And it was after that that I began to feel, through that experience of sitting this weekend, during that weekend, I felt like I came home. I came home to an experience of perception that I had not had since I was a child. My experience of my own perceptions had been obscured by all this discursive mind. And I just felt that I wanted to learn everything, that if this tradition could take me to myself, to my own experience, then I wanted to learn from that tradition. So that's how I stumbled, I sort of fell into this, or I don't know if that has anything to do with trust, but somehow some kind of confidence that this was for me, that I wanted to do this, I wanted to see. But all the texts that I have ever read and studied talk about checking out the teacher. That it's the student's job to check out the teacher, and it's the teacher's job to check out the student. That there has to be this mutual period of time, it could be years actually, where you check each other out. There's no instant decision without this period of checking each other out. So you can go as slow as you need to go to see, is this right for me? And but after that initial story that I just told you, from that time on, though, I felt so much gratitude for the teachings I was receiving and for what I was able to practice, and I was able to make so many discoveries through the practice. So I really had confidence based on just the step-by-step process. It never felt like I was being pushed beyond or at all, really. I wasn't being pushed. And like we all want the teacher to lead us to ourselves. That's what is supposed to happen. That we're not supposed to, they're not making us dependent upon them. They are making us free of them. And the ultimate teacher is our own mind. But we need the teacher to somehow point us, because we're so disassociated somehow from our own wisdom. We've come so far from trusting. Actually, that's the problem, is we don't trust our wisdom. So we need a teacher to say, you actually can trust your own wisdom.
Can you imagine getting to that just through the Buddhist teaching without a teacher? Can you imagine that, or?
I think absolutely I can imagine that. I can imagine that. I just think having a living example of somebody who really exemplifies that is very helpful.
I agree.
It's just helpful.
But wouldn't it be better if they were dead? Just recently.
Well,
just very recently.
I want to ask you something.
No, this is making me uncomfortable already.
No,
when someone says, I want to ask you something, and they lift their head up like that, it's like...
Well, I just want to know how dying made them smarter, made them more trustworthy.
Oh, it didn't make them more. No, it's just that you can then read their record, right? I mean, in other words, all of the stuff that that comes out after they passed on. Right? It's like their track record. Finally, you can kind of like get wind of it. So would you say something about? I thought that was really interesting. The idea of that your discursive mind had taken you away from your original perception, right? And did you know that even before, I mean, or was it just something you realized, say, like when you started studying? And then can you say something about what was your experience of your original perception as a child before the discursive mind came and clouded that up? I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I remember lying in my bed as a child and watching, our little house was on the corner, and I remember the cars going by and the headlights, when the cars would go by, the headlights would go around the room. And this is what I noticed when I was going to sleep at night. And every time a car would go by, the light would go circling around the room, because there were windows on that side and that side. So somehow the way the house was situated to the road, it just reflected. And I didn't have any thoughts about that. I just was in that experience. And then when I started sitting, that all came back to me. And just being in my perceptions without having thoughts about them.
A commentary.
Just pure perception was so refreshing. It was so refreshing, and it felt like home. It felt like coming home to my own perceptions.
I think, does anyone relate to that?
Like to be able to.
So it is. It's like that sitting is really, in a way, coming home.
Yeah.
It really is. So I have another question that I'd like to ask. This is something I really know very little about, and it may not be. You said to me in passing, I was very fascinated with this. You said in passing, this was, I think, on the phone, but you said that your lineage was actually not Vajrayana but Mahayana, which. Do you remember saying that? Which I thought. So anyway, to get back to.
No,
so
I don't remember saying that.
You did. I swear, I've got it taped.
Well, I would just, if that's what I said, I'd like to ameliorate that.
This is where you can't trust people. They say things and then they didn't. I could have misunderstood that, but I would, because it really, for the minute I thought I heard you say that, I thought, oh, that's very fascinating. That, I mean, the difference in the first place in the Mahayana and the Vajrayana is fascinating.
Yes. Where are you going with this?
I was going to ask you about about Tantra, which I know nothing about, and I thought I would love if you. I don't know if that's. Most of us don't know much about Tantra, so I thought that would be I would love to hear a little bit about.
Sure.
But you don't have to do that.
I'm fine with that.
Oh, good.
The thing about, I just like to answer the first part first.
Of course.
Well, my current teacher, who actually has just passed away, and in June, actually, he passed away in June, Shama Rinpoche, and he's the founder of Bodhipath, Bodhipath
he was young,
network.
wasn't he?
Yes, he was only 62. And
that's young.
Yes, it's young. And he, like, as happens in Buddhism all over the world, when it comes to a new culture, it changes. Some parts change, some parts don't. The essence doesn't change, but the outer manifestation changes. And he was very much on the cutting edge of that. And I think he felt that now is the time to drop the tantric practices and to do more Mahayana practices. So he emphasized Mahayana practices in Bodhipath, in the
Okay.
Bodhipath organization. So he was really taking us away from the Vajrayana practices. However, in the 6.5 years of retreat, and all of our curriculum was tantric practices, one
That's what I
after
thought,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah.
And so it's very busy. Tantric practices are extremely demanding. And my teacher, Gendon Rinpoche, was all for the extensive version of every practice.
Mhm.
More offerings, more recitation, really pushing us to do the most extensive version possible of every practice. So,
Can you give us an example?
well, from morning until night. I mean, in retreat, you wake up at 4:30ish, or some weird time like 4:27 or something. The gong starts to ring, and then everybody gets up and everybody does their first session, tun, it's called. And then at a certain time then is breakfast, and then we all do breakfast at the same time, and then again the gong rings and we go back to the next tune after breakfast up until lunch. And we have lunch, and then we have a little period of time, a break, where there's work usually. If you're, we do this kind of rotation of the jobs in the community, of 12 to 15 women in my case. And then the afternoon session starts up until the time for tea, and which is just before we all go to the shrine room or temple or meditation hall in the retreat center, and we do a group practice for an hour and a half. Then we have a short, light dinner, and then we go back for our final tune of the day, the evening session. And so everybody's on the same schedule, everybody's doing the same practices. So that's a pretty much 364 days of the year, every day like that. So it's pretty much like being in a big washing machine. And so the curriculum, is very set. And everybody, now not only our group, but there's another couple of groups doing the same thing that we're doing. So we're all doing this together. So there's a tremendous amount of energy in this place, because there's the men's and the women's side. And, they're mirror images of one another. And then aside from so there's, like, in our case, there were 3 first retreats, and there was then there was the second retreat, the second 3-year retreat. And then there was a group of people who were doing long retreats, so 12 years.
I think 3 years is long enough, don't you think, David?
And then there's
I
the
love it.
monastery.
I don't know if someone saying that, like, then there were some people doing the long retreat. Oh my Lord.
Well, the interesting thing is when they closed the door at the beginning, we all just burst out laughing. We all felt so happy to have the world shut out so that we could be there doing this thing. Just like I'm sure you do when you go on your 6-week retreats. It's
I
the
know that I'm
best.
coming out in a month.
Yeah, but you can't wait to get back in.
No,
right?
it's true.
You go in because
It's
the situation creates the space for you to do this work, and that work, there's nothing more rewarding than to do this work and to delve down into your own being and your own mind and find the treasure that's there.
I agree. Excuse me for interrupting.
So I haven't gotten to the tantric part.
I know you have. I'm going to help you.
Sorry, I'm being a little long-winded.
Well, I don't think the word is discursive. So I've heard, and again we're back to this is like, I've been very interested in Zen for maybe 15 years, but Vajra I know a little about it. But I've always heard that the tantric practices were to fast track you. So the idea is that and by the way, pretty much the Theravadan tradition is called the gradual path, right? I mean, it's about and in the scriptures, the Buddha describes it, right, as the ocean floor doesn't drop down immediately. This is like one of the famous scriptures. It says it goes like this, very gradual, and to some extent, that's the description of the Theravadan practice. But and then of course, if you believe that we have like endless lifetimes to do this, right? So you say, well, I've got like 20 or 30 more lifetimes, so I can really get this done. But so my understanding is that the tantras were to fast track you. So the idea is that the Rinpoches or the lamas said, actually, you can do it in one lifetime. You can get there. Now, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, I rest my case. So that's why you're doing the washing machine, right? That's why you're in the washing machine.
Well, and that's why he wanted us to do the extensive version of
Yes.
every practice.
Yes.
Because, it teaches you patience.
Okay.
It teaches you, the idea of fast track, the whole idea is that we have obstacles. The obstacles that we have are our own negative emotions, our own negative states of mind. So
Right.
that's the only obstacle we really have to face and
Right.
encounter. There's nothing really on the outside that's a problem for us. It's our own ego clinging, we could say, and
That
our
makes
different
sense.
styles of ego clinging.
So in other words, as long to some extent, I think the battery's dying. To some extent, left to well, I'll tell you the famous. I quoted this a few weeks ago with this Nana Vera. Some of you were here. This is really wonderful. He said, the problem with the vija is you take it with you wherever you go. So so you're sitting there, right? So you're sitting there and you're trying to think your way through any issue. You're thinking with a vija or delusion. So that's what you're saying, right? To do a practice so intense that you start breaking through that, right?
Well, you encounter all your resistance. It's so much more pleasant to sit and not have to do. And yet, so Tantra is very much about exertion.
So it's about doing.
Exertion. It's exerting yourself. It's exerting your body, your speech, and your mind. So you have a mala, and you're doing these, and they want you to do it fast. Mantras are supposed to be done fast.
Wow.
Prostrations are supposed to be done fast. And you're not supposed to rest on the floor. You're supposed to go down and jump back up again. So all of these practices are about exerting yourself toward something positive. You're exerting yourself toward a goal of positive, we call it enlightenment, but basically it's ultimate positivity,
Right.
where you just want the best for everyone. You're thinking the best. You altruistic mind, state of mind, and toward, a pure altruism. So it doesn't matter what the object is. So, it's altruism regardless of object. You're not saying, I'll be altruistic toward that object, but not that object. It's pure altruism. It's just, and cultivating that altruistic state of mind. And, there was this practice that we were doing, and we were supposed to be, it's one thing to be in your room alone doing these practices. You can fudge a little bit, right? You can take a break. Say,
Right.
I think I'll write a letter now.
Or read a book.
Read a book. But this month, there was a month dedicated to being in the meditation room, the group meditation room for 12 hours a day. 12 or 18,
Lord.
I don't remember. And more playing, they play instruments, they make lots of, we sing, we recite, and we have these giant drums and these thigh bone horns and these bells, and you know, it's just exertion to the max. And the first 3 days, I tell you, I thought I was gonna die. My mind was screaming with resistance. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I want to be in my own room, doing my own thing.
It's like being at boot camp.
Yeah, it's boot camp. But after 3 days, the resistance broke. And, you know, at the end of the month, I mean, the rest of the time, I felt like I could go forever. You know, and the thing that happens that's so interesting in those situations is you realize what a burden it is to have so much resistance. It's like a giant weight of negative mind, of ego grasping mind. And when you're free of it, it's just like you feel light. You feel, it's so clear that this is beneficial, not to have it, not to have so much resistance. Of course, I mean, they say that all the way until full enlightenment, we have resistance. We have ego clinging. So, but, you know, the thing is, once you've had those experiences where you do have some sort of a breakthrough, then you can't take your resistance so seriously.
Well, would you say
so
that means that you
by it.
also are, when you can't take it so seriously, it also means maybe that you see it more clearly?
Hopefully. But, you know, when it does, it's like, you know, it's not, I don't think of it, I don't see it as seeing clearly. What happens to me personally is that I just, you know, negative mind just kind of creeps up from behind, somewhere where you don't, you don't recognize it. And all of a sudden, you just don't feel good. You just feel kind of yucky. And then you're like, what's going on? And it's the suffering that wakes you up. Don't you experience it like that, Victor? It's pretty, maybe it's universal.
Well, it is. This is the first time I've really understood the whole point of Tantra practices.
Well,
Merci beaucoup.
Maybe I'm dense, but I'm having trouble getting what the practice specifically is.
I didn't really say, did I?
She didn't. She did that on purpose, by the way.
No, I mean, there's lots of different practices, and they all entail, you know, some visualization. You're visualizing, let's see, what's the Jungian term for an idealized image, an archetype. You know, instead of, you know, sometimes in our English translation is deity, right? But that's very confusing because there are no outside deities, right? So that term isn't very helpful, I don't think. So I would say it's an archetypal symbol of our own awakened mind, an aspect of our own awakened mind. So in visualizing that archetypal symbol of compassion, let's say, then we're associating our mind with compassion, the qualities of compassion. And so you do that visualization, you have a certain recitation that reminds you of the qualities. You make offerings to those qualities, you praise those qualities, you know, you do everything, and all the recitation is about making offering, praising.
And is this in a meditative state then? Like
Yes. Ideally, of course. But a lot of times when you see people doing mantras, they don't look very meditative because really you're supposed to use it as a meditation. But it's a much busier meditation. I mean, there's much more energy in that meditation because you're employing your speech, you're employing visualization that's not static, it's actually moving. You have lights, and lights are moving in different directions. They're going out, they're coming back. You know, it takes a lot of discipline to meditate on moving objects.
Oh, of course.
So, and at the same time, your body's engaged. You're pulling the beads of the mala. So, and of course, we can have resistance to that. You know, being so busy, it's like my hand is tired. I want to rest my arm and my, resistance is across the board. So we're using the body, the speech, and the mind in these practices. And, when you can coordinate all of that, really you are reaching a very deep meditative state. But it's a lot more is going on than just watching the breath or whatever object one happens to be using. So.
Well, and it's pretty clear that you could not even begin to do that like from 3 to 5 every Sunday, right? Right. I mean that's how you get the point of doing it with great intensity and frequency. Even like 3 years. I mean, it's like in order to do that, it's going to take an incredible dedication.
Well, and you have the preliminary practices, the prostrations, the mantra, 100-syllable mantra, the mandala, and the guru yoga. And that's just, that you can't do these tantric practices without doing 111,000 of each one of those.
111? I thought that's not that many. 111, how many?
111,000.
So I wanted to share something just because you've been talking too long, Dewdrop.
I know, I'm sorry.
I noticed this at lunch, when I took her to lunch, which I paid for, by the way.
But you notice that you don't like to answer questions.
That's true. I'm very artful at dodging. This is just sort of like to share with you a thought that I had. I've said this to a few people. I mean, it's like, I'm very good at memorizing smart things that dead people said. And one of the smartest things that I ever read, I think I said this to Nolly. I think I said this to you when we had an interview, Nolly and I had Nolly is from USC, and she's doing a project, and she's interviewing important people. And behind you is Jane, Nolly, and over here is Norman. So Gurdjieff had this analogy, and this is so, I mean, as you're talking, I'm so thinking of it. So a lot of you know that I have real concern about what is happening to mindfulness in California. That I mean, if you compare what this person is sharing with us, right, and our practice of mindfulness in Southern California, it's like, wait just a minute. So Gurdjieff said, he had this analogy of taking a nugget of gold. So you have this nugget of gold, right? Pretty big, and he says, and you want to share it with everybody. You want everybody to have some of this gold. So you take it to a person, and they pound it down into small pieces, So now that nugget of gold, now let's say it's like 300 pieces, but they keep pounding it. So you get it down to powder, gold dust. And then you fly over a city, and you spread the gold dust over the city. And what happened to the gold nugget? Or even the gold dust? So you can dilute a practice by making it so acceptable to the more and more and more people. For very good, for altruistic intentions even. And at the end, what are you left with? You've lost the essence of the teaching. You really have. And so this was his argument for keeping a teaching, within the context of a group. This is really what Tibetan Buddhism has done, really, as far as I'm concerned, for since 800 or 900. It has really held the gold nugget. It hasn't tried to disperse it around the world. It hasn't diluted the teaching. And so I think you're living proof of the result of it. How was that? Was that pretty good?
That's too much.
But it's true. It's true. And as I said, I mean, I'm being flippant, which is my nature. But I really think that that's what we may be doing with the Vipassana teaching, which is far more ancient. The Vipassana teaching is far more ancient than the Tibetan. It's like 1,000 years older. And now we are in danger of now every therapist in California is going to take a course inside LA, for a year, and then they're going to be qualified to teach mindfulness to their clients. It's very good. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I wonder how much of the essence, Brad, how are we losing the essence of, because mindfulness ultimately is about, it's the same thing, ending suffering. It's exactly the same thing. It's ending suffering by, seeing the delusion, the negative stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to give that little.
Well, to sort of connect the dots for me, Gendon Rinpoche said one of the biggest obstacles to our practice, our meditation practice, is clinging to peace.
Mm-hmm. Do you get that? Jane does. Do you get that, kids? Clinging to peace? David? Andrew? Do you get that? That the biggest obstacle to our practice is brilliant, is clinging to peace.
I don't get that.
Well, it's really when she's talking, even when she was talking about the fact that, that you can't do these tantric practices and be sitting there like this, it's not possible, right? I mean, right?
Well, I think we have to question our attitude to our practice when we use the practice to escape anything. Mm-hmm. Escape our life, escape our misery, or escape the moment, basically, the irritating moment. And so I think that's why these tantric practices speed it up, because they are saying, go ahead, work hard, go beyond, go into your discomfort, explore your discomfort.
I think
don't run away from it.
I think that's really what we mean by spiritual bypassing, right?
Yeah.
Using meditation to actually bypass certain problems that we have.
Yeah, so I think, if we don't do that, if we somehow can challenge ourselves not to want peace, not to be attached to peace. Of course, we all want peace. There's a difference between aspiring to peace and being attached to peace. Because aspiring has the quality of patience. It has the quality of, I'm going to do this no matter how long it takes. And attachment to peace is suffering, because you become angry, if somebody disturbs your peaceful meditation.
Yeah.
Or if you're angry at the birds, or angry at the jackhammer, or
we don't want to be angry at birds. Was it who said, was it the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat? Someone said, the only way to have peace is to be peace. Yeah. And so, this striving to have peace, right, will prevent you from ever being peace. When you said, did that make sense finally?
Yeah, that totally made sense.
I would like to just say the other side of it, from the Vipassana side of it. I'm just going to put this other side in here. Because Brandon, who was sitting there yesterday, was asking me, we have this great question about the difference in Vipassana and the importance of jhana practice, or profound samadhi, and sati, sampajana, how do you balance them? So he was asking me about developing the jhanas, and the one, and which I think is, I was saying, it's very good and it's very important. But it is the same thing. You can develop the jhana, the ability to be incredibly in tranquility and bliss, and become entirely trapped by it, right?
Entirely
Stuck
what?
forever. Stuck in, it's the same thing, right? You're stuck in peace. I mean, from the Vipassana side, we would say stuck in a high, blissful state, which will never take you beyond. You're always going to be stuck there. And the other part of it is, by the way, so you're stuck in a blissful state until you get in the car and get on the 405, and then you want to kill somebody, right? It's true. I mean, because it only lasts as long as you're sitting in silence and still. But the downside of it is once you get out into life, then you become Bob or Bill or June or Ann again. So it's a brilliant statement. I had not heard that. Not to get stuck in peace.
Yeah. I think attachment is the thing to notice, the clinging to it. It's not the peace itself,
Right.
because we all would love peace, and our peace is our nature. It's
Right.
our true nature. So we are going for peace, but we can make it go very far away if we try to grasp it.
I keep thinking as I'm listening to Khaydroup, I keep thinking when I'm going to say something, I've got to pick up a microphone. I can't remember. I can't remember the city hanging on my ear. So I keep thinking I'm going to take your mic. So I want to. So we're really at the. We've gone to the end of what we usually take as a Dharma talk or a presentation. By now, people are fidgeting and scratching their ears. But so, would you like to ask a question of our wonderful guest? Through the goodness that arises from my practice,
That arises from my practice,
and through this act of sharing,
and through this act of sharing,
may desire and attachment quickly cease,
may the desire and attachment quickly cease,
and all harmful states of mind.
and all harmful states of mind.
May I have an upright mind with mindfulness and wisdom.
May I have an upright mind with mindfulness and wisdom,
Austerity and vigor.
austerity and vigor.
May the forces of delusion not take hold,
May the forces of delusion not take hold,
nor weaken my resolve,
nor weaken my resolve,
until I realize nirvana in every kind of birth.
until I realize nirvana in every kind of birth.
The Buddha is my excellent refuge.
The Buddha is my excellent refuge.
The Dharma, my protection unsurpassed.
The Dharma, my protection unsurpassed.
The Sangha is my supreme support.
The Sangha is my supreme support.
And through the power of these,
And through the power of these,
may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
may darkness and delusion be dispelled.